The Break Beach Bar, in conjunction with Tell Staffing and HR, bring you Play Harder Radio, the Gulf Coast premier sports and BS talk show. Things that matter in the world of sports, and things that don't matter to anyone. It's just Faj's opinion. Where the F-bomb is allowed, but frowned upon. This is Play Harder Radio. And now, your hosts, Chad Colquitt and James Grant.
All right, here we go again. Welcome back to another week of Play Harder Radio. I'm Jim Grant. Faja de Som. That intro is going to continue for a while, I guess. I guess I do the same thing every week. That old intro that I don't re-record. Todd, how you doing?
I'm good. And I like it. I just wish I didn't have Chad.
Chad is Pensacola, and he gets that billing, I guess, for a while.
Free advertising.
He helped make the show what it is today.
I understand.
Even without him.
I just took the flag down, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So you're flagless.
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 Do you like the flag filter or not like the flag filter? I like the flag filter.
I do too. I mean, but you said that you had some complaints about it, so
I like the patriotism of the flag filter.
we've got the flag next to you instead in the seat.
But I want the filter on at times because I just like the flag. I love the flag.
Oh, I do too. Well, I'll just randomly.
I'm all about the flag.
I'll just randomly bring it in every once.
Don't try to burn the flag in front of me.
It's in there now.
You know what I mean?
I understand. I don't. Let's see. Should I just call the number you sent? Dan is asking if he should call the number.
He's got to go to Zoom.
Just call the number.
Go to the Zoom app and put in that ID number. Go to Zoom.com or whatever the hell it is on your computer, Daniel, and put in that ID number, 861-968-6589 is the Zoom number. Any and all should Zoom in and give me shit. That's how I see it.
That's right.
Right?
I think that's a great idea.
How's your week been?
This has been a good week.
Okay, good. That's enough.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No.
You're not on spring. You're off of spring break.
Yes. It was. And I guess next Friday's like a half day or something. Only 9 weeks left in the school year.
Next Friday is a half day. You're like this coming Friday or next Friday?
Next Friday.
You're looking forward to a half day in a week and a half?
I know. It's the little things.
Wow.
It's the little things.
That must be quite the chore.
I'm looking forward to summer break even more than I was looking forward to spring break.
What class? What class do you teach?
I don't want to talk about any of it. I don't want to get any specifics. I might randomly say something that I shouldn't. So I just as soon not talk about any of it.
Got you. Well, I spent last week.
I could talk about some stuff. Don't think I couldn't.
So now I know you're itching to talk about it.
So that's
but supposedly you're not. Supposedly you're not going to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I spent last weekend in California.
Oh, that's right. Did you see the Pacific at all?
Hell yeah, I saw the Pacific.
Okay, well, you said you were going to be inland. What'd you say?
I posted sunset on the Pacific.
I didn't even go look. I don't do a lot of Facebook, so.
I actually got it every, like 5 pictures every over a 10-minute span from just above the horizon to
And this would have
halfway.
been Long Beach, right?
No,
What was the city that you...
this is the Central Coast.
Was it Santa Monica Pier then, or what?
No, Central Coast. I wasn't
well, I
down
don't
there
know,
in Southern California.
Well, Southern California is San Diego.
L.A. is Southern California.
Well, okay. San Diego's farther southern. But
San Diego is Southerner
right,
California.
southerner. Okay, so what was the beach that you hit then? Do you remember?
I hit Avila Beach,
Never been to that one.
Pismo Beach.
I have heard of that one.
You've heard of it. You haven't been there.
I don't think so, no.
Grover Beach.
I've been all the way from the San Francisco to San Diego. So
Grover Beach.
no, never heard of it.
So this area,
It's
the
beautiful.
Central Coast,
Yeah, okay.
everybody knows I'm
Dan Begley
how would I put it?
has it. He got it.
I saw that.
Okay.
Everybody knows that I'm a political, I don't
A
know.
crazy right winger.
Yeah,
Okay.
an asshole right winger.
There we go. Call it like it is.
So I'm opinionated on California, Newsom, and this and that, whatever. But so I go out to the Central Coast. So I have my, unwarranted, perhaps,
Okay.
an unwarranted attitude about all of California.
I
Even
know-
though I have some of my favorite people live in California.
Right. I've got good friends there.
Now more favorite people
Right.
in California. But this Central Coast, I was educated while I was there. So it's between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay. Okay.
It's south of Big Sur, but it's about they call the Central Coast. It's about 80 miles long along the coast.
Is there cliffs?
Yes.
Okay.
And 60 miles inland. It's very hilly around there.
I like that about
Well, and so this all pertains. So it's 80 miles north to south, and then east to west 60 miles, and 250,000 people in that 4,800 square mile area.
Okay.
Only 250,000 people. There's 300,000 people in Escambia County, Florida.
Okay.
So it is not, to say the least, the population is not dense on the
Right.
Central Coast. And all the towns are like little
Seaside town.
seaside towns.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Like-
love that.
That's a good way to put it, seaside towns. It's very
Fishing.
cliche. Yeah, like villages.
Yeah.
Not towns, almost like villages.
Yeah.
And I didn't go anywhere where the food was. I didn't stop. Well, the only place that the food was average was a convenience store. I stopped.
I bet you got some good crab.
I didn't get that far. I mean, you know what one of the best things I had there was?
What's that?
It was at the Fireside. I can't remember. Firestone. Shoot, I can't remember exactly. Anyway, it was a tri-tip sandwich. Do you know what tri-tip is?
I have no idea.
It's a cut of the sirloin. The end of the sirloin. There's only two on the
On a fish?
on the cow, on the steer.
Oh, okay. We're talking
Fish?
steers. I'm thinking
Yeah, you
you're
got
on
the coast
water.
thing.
Your coast, You don't
Dan's
go to
there-
you don't
Dan-
go to the beach to get steak.
Dan's
most of
there
the time.
waiting to be let in, so
Oh, is
let him in, and then Dan, hang on a minute. I'll get with you in a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna let Dan. Admit, I'm gonna view Dan. I'm not.
You
gonna
can view
admit
him
it.
and don't put him on yet, but just I'll be with you in a minute, Dan. But
He hears us.
what was I saying? Oh, tri-tip.
Tri-tip.
It's a cut of the sirloin. It's at the end of the sirloin that's cut in a triangle, and I guess it doesn't. They only do it out on the West Coast in Arizona. They don't do it in the Midwest, I guess. I don't know why or whatever. But it was it was the best sandwich I ever had.
Oh, is that right?
It was so tender. It was like having a fillet
But was it like
in a sandwich.
thinly sliced?
It was
steak?
cut. It was cut in little strips. It was in little triangles even.
Oh, wow. Okay.
just chopped up.
Any kind of meat sauce?
$12.99.
Any kind of brown sauce?
Yeah, this barbecue sauce that was I would eat cereal in.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're making me hungry. You
It
going to
was.
take me to eat after this?
I'm
is
going to
over?
find out if they will ship them.
Okay.
That damn
Just overnight,
you know,
sandwich?
everything's expensive in California, right? Supposedly.
Not super. I mean, it's
You're not helping my
No, you know what
delivery here.
I'm slowing you down. I know. I found that the purchasing goods doesn't cost that much more. It's just housing that
And
is
gas.
expensive. Oh,
But
it's
you know what?
gas.
In the central coast there, I'm probably going to overdo saying the central coast tonight. But I saw gas at like in the 360s.
Oh, okay.
So
That
not
was cheap. you
So
mean.
not abjectly more expensive. I mean, not over the top.
Okay.
You know.
We'll be at 360 by the end of summer.
Yeah, there's no
There'll
doubt.
be 5.
Anyway, the food was amazing. You know, I had great hospitality there. Annie, Joel, and Adriana. I stayed at their house in Bakersfield. I flew into Bakersfield. Joel and Adriana with Merrick and Monty. They're two little ones. 2 and 1. 2 and 1. Yeah.
Okay.
2 in a year, and and cute as hell, and they were.
Every time I
They were
hear
awesome.
Bakersfield, I hear the song play in my head. The Bakersfield song.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a
Jerry.
isn't it a Glenn? Was it
No.
Glenn Campbell? What's his name? Redid it.
I'm drawing a blank now. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think about it every time I say that.
What's his name? Redid it a few years ago. It was it wasn't Glenn Campbell. What's the Dwight Yoakam redid it. It was a song by the guy that was on Hee Haw. I can't remember what his name was.
Porter Wagner,
No, not Porter Wagner. He was never on Hee Haw.
Roy.
Not Roy Clark.
Roy Clark.
The other one.
Yeah, the other one. Shut up.
I can't remember. Anybody?
Come on.
Come on, help us. Anybody on Facebook?
So anyway,
Okay.
I wanted
Yeah.
to talk more about my
Okay.
hospitality.
Talk
there.
about your hospitality.
Stayed a night with Robin and John over around the coast, over by the coast. I don't remember what town they were in, but it was awesome. John is a freaking character,
Okay.
to say the least.
There's a lot of
And,
those in California.
Drew and Javier in San Luis Obispo. Javier knows Drew has a new book coming out, which is the
Buck Owens, thank you, Dan. You're 100% correct.
Buck Owens.
Buck Owens. Yeah, he was a great guitarist.
But Drew has a new book coming out with his Ayurveda. Ayurveda.
Why is he not calling in the show to talk about this?
It's a she.
Oh, shoot.
But
Okay.
Ayurveda is the yoga for your inside and your different doshas. It's pretty cool.
Is this
the
a
book
Shirley,
is-
Shirley MacLaine chakra thing?
No.
Is it? No? Okay.
No. Well, I don't know. Chakras maybe have something. Doshas, similar. It's yoga for your inside. It's super cool. Javier, her boyfriend, that dude knows everybody. Had a great time with him, talking to him. We had a little political conversation, but we were at Kelsey Winery in that San Luis Obispo area. It was awesome.
Okay.
I had a great time out there. It was amazing. But we spent Saturday night on the beach and had a fire out on the beach. I posted that on Facebook too. Maybe you
gosh,
saw it,
I
but you
need to-
didn't.
I need to go look at your Facebook.
But that night, there were 2 young ladies,
Okay.
2 years old, and I don't know, 6 or 7, Scout and Pearl. These 2 little girls were the most adorable and I don't know what, sweet and friendly and congenial
Okay.
little girl. I mean, Scout, I'm like, come here, Scout. She comes right to me, sits on my lap with me, takes her mom's sitting there, takes off down to the water with me. I'm like, can I take her to the water with me and you let her go put her toes in the water? It was cold, but it was cold. but
Oh, really?
they were amazing.
Well,
They
that
were
sounds
they
fun.
were they just fit right in. They just were one of the adults
That sounds fun.
at 2 and 6 or 7 or 5 or 6 or 7. I don't know how old Pearl was. Pearl and Scout, and two great names, right?
Oh yeah.
To go with it.
Yeah.
Just adorable. Cute as can be, adorable, lovable, a blast. Everybody was a blast on the trip. I had the best time.
Well,
It was amazing.
I mean, half your trip was probably fly time, wasn't it? I mean,
I'll talk about that. Let's get Dan on.
okay. Let's
Let him in.
Dan, let's have you join. And what do I need to do to have Dan join? Admit.
Have you done
There
this
we go,
before?
Dan. Yeah, I think so. Once or twice.
Lord. Daniel, are you there?
I got to get Daniel's little window set up, but Daniel is connecting to audio, and Daniel has his mic muted right now, but I'm sure he's going to change that here shortly.
Unmute your mic, my man.
Okay.
And
There he is.
And eventually here I'll have him on screen.
What's up, my man?
Hey, brother. I'm listening to you talk about tri-tip, and we both come from the great state of Michigan, and I had to laugh because a good friend of mine, that's the only meat he buys, and he waits till it goes on sale, and he does a special on the barbecue tri-tip.
Right.
And he swears by it, and it's fairly economical.
Yeah.
I've never been to match his expertise on the grill with it, but you're right. It's a very good.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad you had to go all the way to California to find out how good it was, but now
Well,
you know.
it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, listening to you, just in these last few minutes, all your experiences out there, people are going to figure out that we've known each other for a while here after a few minutes, but, they say the richest man in the world is the one that has the most friends. And you're right up there, buddy, obviously, with all these experiences. So you're pretty wealthy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? I'm gonna let it go at that instead of doing the typical give my excuse why that's not true. But thank you. I am blessed with I feel like the friends that I have, and I feel like I made 10 new friends this last weekend.
That's cool.
When I was out there, and all amazing.
Well, in this time, when you can have those kinds of experiences, I think what's happened here in the last couple of years or year and a half is those things become obviously the most important aspects of your life when you're deprived of them, right?
Right.
Like we've been.
Which we have been for the last year.
Right. So, I told you a little bit about my experience here. My first experience directly related to the COVID scenario is, I called the doctor to get an appointment to check my back, and he said, you got to get tested before you can come in here. So, a little frustrating, but understood. They want to keep the traffic down, but you start thinking about what effect does that have on, other people with other conditions that need to see somebody face to face.
I know a friend, and I have a friend in Lubbock, Texas, who had I hope I'm not misspeaking, a tumor in his ear, an ear cavity in that ear area or whatever, and couldn't get anything done about it for months.
Yeah.
Because of this. Complete bullshit in my mind, since who the healthy are the ones being regulated,
Right.
being handcuffed. And if you think about, I don't want the show to be political or the whole show, but if you think about, I don't even know what the hell I was going to say now.
Hey, Dan, I've got a real quick question for you. Were you able to? Are you going to be able to zoom with your camera in, or are you just going to stay audio?
Hold on.
If not, that's fine. I just wanted to ask. I didn't know if I was doing
You
something.
know what?
You're
I
pretty.
just discovered my computer does not have a camera.
Okay, well that's fine. You sound fine.
You cheap
So-
ass, buy a new computer. How
it's
old
a
is that thing?
It's a boat anchor. It's a work computer, and if it's not broken, why fix it?
I'll bet you it's an off-white IBM monitor.
No, it's actually a Dell, probably Inspirano.
So you're on
one
a
of those
desktop,
older
though,
models.
right?
Latitude.
No, he's on a laptop, I'm sure.
Are you on a laptop or a desktop?
I'm on a laptop.
Oh, okay.
Well, cool. You're coming through fine.
Yeah,
so
you sound great.
you're not that pretty anyway. So I mean,
True enough.
you're pretty.
I
You're
always
pretty
say,
enough. But
Jim, I have to say, is probably one of the most beautiful conservative people I've ever met.
shit.
So don't be discouraged by what anybody says
About him.
about your politics,
Thank you.
because you know where I come from, right?
Hey, you want to know something? I was doing a little speaking of Michigan, and I'm hoping that I put it. Most of my Twitter feeds is with Michigan people with Wolverine stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, and we will get to the tournament a little bit here, but and we're going to have maybe a couple guys join us, and we'll have another guy, John Schreiber, I think, is going to call in around 9:30 your time, 8:30 ours here, and maybe join us and talk a little bit. But I didn't realize how far north Alpena was.
Oh yeah, it's in the UP without being in the UP. It's that close. I mean, it's only an hour, a little over an hour and 15 minutes to the bridge.
Yeah, you're kind of directly opposite Traverse City on the eastern side, right?
Correct. Directly across Lake Huron from Parry Sound, Ontario. You know what the significance of that is, right?
No.
Birthplace and childhood home of the greatest player ever to play the game of hockey.
Bobby Hall.
No.
Wait a
Bobby
minute.
Orr.
Steve Eiserman.
Bobby Orr.
Gordie Howe. That's cool. Bobby Orr, man. You know what? I feel like except for we're gonna get off track now. I feel like except for purists, original six purists and stuff, Bobby Orr doesn't get his due.
Well, he doesn't, and he unfortunately, it's been long enough now where the younger guys don't really know as much about him, but his career was too short. He, with injuries and everything, he only played 10 seasons.
Right.
But what he did in 10 seasons was, remarkable.
So
And what I tried to tell somebody the other day, the difference between him and everybody else during his era was he was by far and away the best skater in every aspect on the ice every night. And that's how he was able to dominate. So, the game's changed quite a bit, but
people
he
should
is
learn
probably
from
the
that.
one guy. What's that?
People should learn from that. Take note.
Yeah, he's probably the one guy from the old days that could play at today's pace.
Right.
It's so fast today that he could probably handle it. A lot of the other guys might have difficulty.
So I worked at in 1985. I went to work at Lindlau Chevrolet, and Jennifer Lyle, the owner's daughter, was married to Steve, and I'm hating that for Steve. He's not listening, I'm sure. Nobody that's in the story is listening, but Steve was a Boston Bruins fan. And his favorite story, I probably heard him tell it 10 times, was, I don't know who the radio announcer for the Bruins was back in the day, but it was Bobby Orr days. And it was the playoffs, and it was overtime or whatever. And the guy was making the call, and Orr had a breakaway and a shot, and the radio guy's like, He takes he goes, or shoots, he hit the fucking crossbar. And right, I mean, if you think about it, the 70s, right? Live radio in the 70s, and he rips that one
there's
off.
Probably no delay.
You know, right?
Who would really like that story is Al Randall.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was doing some research on Al, and that's why and because one of the things that drew me to Al is that obviously that he's the voice of the Michigan Wolverines, now going on his 25th year, I believe.
He's in his 25th year this year.
Yeah, and that he did. He wasn't from. I forget now where he's from. I'm not.
He's originally from Trenton, downriver.
Yeah, downriver, right. But then he, I guess he called outdoor games up in Alpena.
Well, he started his career as a play-by-play hockey guy. He started calling games when I was I think sophomore or junior in high school, which would have been 75-ish, okay?
Right.
And he had previously done some sports like football.
Right.
But, hockey was a big thing there.
His passion.
And they got permission to start doing the games. And he tells a funny story. I probably ought to let him tell you, but he had to have, he had to convince the athletic director of the high school to allow him to broadcast 2 games on the weekend and not 1, because the athletic director thought if he was broadcasting, then it would keep the fans from coming to the rink, which was the farthest thing from the truth.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't get a seat in that arena any Friday or Saturday, just impossible. So, that went by the wayside. But Al started his play-by-play calling my high school games in 1975, and he just went on from there. But the arena in the early days, it was right next to the Lake Huron. I mean, 100 yards from the lake.
It got cold
because it was in the summer. It was used as a pavilion. They took the sides down, and people used it for cover during the summer. But they put these flimsy sides up on during the winter, during hockey season, and that it really didn't do much. It helped with the wind, but it didn't do anything with the temperature.
Right. So Al, loves hockey, and he's doing these outdoor games. He did these outdoor games for 19 years.
Well, what you're probably he did the high school games from 75 till, if he's been at Michigan for 25 years, till 95. So
yes.
He did that for 20 years too.
Right. So he, and in that his goal was always to be the voice of the Red Wings.
Yeah, you're right.
And that job came up around that 95 to around 94-ish, 95. And he applied for it, did not get it. The voice of the Wolverines, I'm not remembering names right now of those 2 guys, the Red Wings guy that retired and the Michigan Wolverines guy that took the job at the Red Wings, that got the job. But Ken
Cal took the job at Detroit.
Right. And then I think he put in a good word for Al.
At Michigan.
Right. But he didn't hear from him, I believe, and his wife said, "Well, call him," if I'm remembering correctly. And
yeah, I think you're right.
And now it turns into 25 years. And one of the things I was going to say about Al that drew me to him and made me even, it sounds funny, but care about him is he just went through a bout of tongue cancer, which a very good friend of mine also from Lubbock went through. Carla went through in the last couple of years. They went through it at about the same time. And so I really felt for him and really
Well,
you know,
when he was
followed
going
him and
through-
had my, you know,
Yeah. Well, when he was going through that, you know, the big concern was would he keep his voice?
Right.
Because that stuff can be real close and involve the vocal cords, I guess. And you know, he had to go through a lot of therapy, but he fought his way through it. He's a trooper. He, you know, the guy has more statistical knowledge. You should see him operate in a game. He's got 2 or 3 laptops. He's calling a live game. He can, if somebody makes a play, he can say, you know, the last time a Michigan player did that was December 27th,
he doesn't
1998.
he doesn't have a stat guy or somebody.
No, he
Doing
does
that?
it all himself.
That's amazing. Who's his partner right now? Andrew?
Well, Andrew Merrick did for a couple years, and I think he does part time. And you know, I've told you that about him, his pedigree. His dad Wayne played for Andrew played for Michigan, but
Right.
his dad Wayne played for the Islanders and won 4 cups, Stanley Cups. So
Damn.
you know, pretty solid hockey family. But the current color guy, his name's Max Schubert, and I listened to him last week. He's pretty sharp. All these young guys, you know, these young guys from Michigan, none of them are dummies,
Right.
and you know, really wise beyond their years when it comes to the game. But he's had to rotate some guys this year because of the whole thing with the pandemic.
Right.
So,
You know what's interesting about that? That he's had to rotate these guys and such, but Al has only, and you can correct me or he'll correct me if I get lucky enough to get him on here. But I think he's only missed 2 games in his career, and that includes the time during that he battled the cancer.
yeah, that's correct.
Are you kidding me? You got cancer in your throat, on your tongue, and I think during that time he only missed 1. And the other one was when his dad was sick and he had to leave to go see his dad, I believe.
He had to go to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Al is, you know, old school. Very unique guy. You know, I call him a friend. I've known him for 45 years plus. And he wasn't that much older than me when he was, you know, started calling the games. He was in his early 20s. So, you know,
That's
he was
crazy.
just a
That's
kid
wild.
then. Yeah. So, you know, just an interesting relationship I've had with him. And it's always fun when he comes to Pennsylvania because, you know, we hook up at Penn State when he calls their games. And then I try to get over to Yost once or twice a year. And he always gets me in the press box. And, you know, it's fun. But he's done more games, radio games, than any broadcaster in Michigan sports history.
I don't remember the number that he's at.
He's over 1,000.
That's crazy. That's I can't remember who the coach was that I was watching today when NHL interviews go bad.
Oh, okay.
And it was some coach who's coached 13, and the guy and these reporters, I'm like, you guys he was just giving him shit about something.
Probably John Tortorella.
No, it wasn't Tortorella, but you know what's funny is you have, I'm watching these interviews gone bad, right? And so they start out with Tortorella, right? Then there's a player interview. Then there's Tortorella. Then there's another interview with a different coach. And then it's Tortorella. Then there's a player. Then it's Tortorella.
Yeah.
It is priceless. I was going to just edit it out, you know?
Yeah.
Just edit it where it was all Tortorella. He gets up
No,
there. He's with the Blue Jackets, and they lose 7-2 in a cup game to, was it Boston?
Yeah.
And he's like, he goes, Appreciate you guys showing up. Obviously, I'm not going to answer any questions tonight. Thanks. And walks away.
Yeah. Yeah, he is probably the best. Say it like it is. There's a few of them in the NHL, but he's probably the best when it comes to that.
Weren't we? Hey, hang on one second. Todd, were you saying something to me?
I'm wondering if you're getting any of the texts that I'm sending you so that I'm not having to interrupt you guys.
You can talk. What are you saying?
I'm saying John is. It looks like he's on.
Is on hold. All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about one more thing, Dan, together, and then we'll let John come on, and the three of us can talk about the tournament a little bit.
Okay.
That work?
Yeah.
So I'm on my way out, and before I forget, this is back to the flights out to California and making friends, right? And so before I get into that, I forgot one person on the that I wanted to thank for the hospitality out there, and that's Daniel. So Daniel, great to meet you. Had a great time Saturday night. Hopefully we'll do it again. But I had on the way out to God, I'm drawing a blank. I had to take 2 flights to get out there. 3 flights. Flying out, so I had to go back to Charlotte, and then Charlotte to Phoenix, and then Phoenix to Bakersfield. And on the first flight, I sat next to a guy who was a 22-year Air Force veteran, B-1 bomber pilot.
Oh yeah.
And just, I'm like, he's like B-1. He's like B-1 bomber pilot, and I'm like, so I start drooling. I'm like, what? B-1 bomber pilot? Can we be best friends? And so, so super awesome talking to him. And he was on his way to Afghanistan. He now flies private planes for a company. He didn't say who, but he was on his way on his way to Afghanistan. He had to go to Dubai and quarantine for 2 weeks in a hotel room in Dubai. Not like stay in a hotel. He had to stay in the hotel room for 2 weeks. He cannot leave the room.
Wow.
So, I mean, crazy. And then the next flight, I go back towards the back, and I had a face mask on that kind of gave away my patriotism.
Okay.
And I'm getting back to sit down, and this lady pulls her mask down. She goes, "I love your mask." And it turns out I'm in their row, her and her husband's row. And I'm sitting next to this guy, and he's reading these horse magazines. He's got boots on, reading these jeans, reading these horse magazines. And he sits in the seat. You know how some people just like get cowboy in their seat? And they're kind of all up in your, they get in your business and everything too. He just was a guy who was sure of his place, I guess. So I asked him, I'm like, what do you do with horses? And he goes, team roping. I'm like, really? Team roping? And I could tell by his hands that he was, probably older than me, but I couldn't really tell for sure how he was lean and tall and I'm like, I go, team roping. I'm like, how old are you? And he goes, I'm in my 70s, man. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, team roping? He's like, yeah, man. He goes, I've tore my groin away, completely away from the bone, this shoulder. And he's talking about all this stuff. And his wife's over in the other seat, shaking her head. She's like, oh my Lord, about him and everything. And I'm like, 70s? And he goes, yeah. I go, what'd you do? And he goes, yeah, I do team roping, and I raise roping horses and sell them to these CEOs. And they ride them maybe once a year. They just want to have a better horse than their buddy's horse. And so then the other people, whoever. So we're talking a little bit, and he goes, yeah, before that, I was a sheriff in California. And I'm like, of course you were, right? Sheriff, now you're a team roper. And we're talking a little bit about that. And he's like, yeah, I had to get out of California. Wasn't working for us there. Needed to, so that's why we're around Prescott now in Arizona. He goes, before that, I was in the Secret Service. And I go, do you drink whiskey? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, I go, good, because we're getting together again someday, and I want to hear your stories because I know they're good.
Well, Jimmy, this brings up the point that I made to you before about a program. You started with the word patriotism, whatever you were wearing, your face mask. And, in this day and age, sometimes, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, if you're like pro-American, you can be considered by some as non-patriotic, right?
Right.
Which is twisted in my mind. I don't understand that thinking, but there's people out there that look at it that way. But I don't know if you remember me talking to you about, an interview type program where just think of just your experience flying out to California. Those two guys, you interacted with them and you learned about them, but take it a step or two deeper and say, well, what did your dad do? What did your grandfather do? Right?
That would have
And
been
everybody in this country has a story like that to tell. And the more of those stories that we hear, the better we feel about each other. And nobody does that anymore.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point for digging into somebody's, getting.
I mean, I wouldn't you want to know what kind of guy this guy's dad was, and his parents? To know what.
Absolutely, I didn't think about that.
How does the guy turn out like that? He can't have two idiots for parents.
And not to mention, by the way, this former, I found him on Facebook, but this former sheriff, former Secret Service guy, I find his Facebook page, and the cover photo looks like it's the Green Beret hat. What do you call that? The beret. Looks like a Green Beret that he's wearing. And I'm like, that would just top it off, wouldn't it? And by the way, his name is King Davis.
Of course.
Of course. I'm like, he goes, King Davis, and shakes my hand. I'm like, Jim Grant. I can't match that King Davis name.
It was probably something like Thomas Jefferson King Davis.
Right.
And he shortened it.
I'm not trying to bring up my birthday, but do you know whose birthday I share March 15th with?
David Jefferson?
Andrew Jackson.
Oh, okay.
The last person to take down the central bank, by the way. Just saying.
Well, I think we'd need another one of those guys.
Yes, we do.
Maybe you're it.
Yeah. My closet is so full of skeletons. If that cracked, it would overwhelm whoever opened it, and I'd be in big. They'd never let me. If they're mad at Trump's, grab them by the you-know-what, they just would go. They wouldn't want to know nothing about me.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Let's get John in here and talk with us about the tournament a little bit.
Yeah.
I am admitting John now. I'm not sure.
John Schreiber,
He's going to have a camera.
that we had that was on with us before, if you remember.
There's John.
John, you there?
Looks like it's buffering.
Hello.
Hey, John.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I just got here in the nick of time, actually.
Right on. Can you hear, Dan, can you hear both of us?
Yeah, I can hear you both.
And John, can you hear both of us?
I can.
Cool. First time we've done 3 people.
Nice. Okay, neat.
I'm going to word it that way and not go any further.
I'm glad to be part of a first here.
Right on. We're just talking about some. Dan and I are old friends. John, if you look at the picture on the Play Hard Radio page, John, you're still getting your pretty face up on Facebook. So you're still in that picture with me. So
I appreciate being included in that.
So you're still in the picture on on the Facebook page, and Chad's still in the intro. So I don't let anybody go ever.
Once you make an oath to the Play Harder Radio crew, it's there. Like you can't get out.
You can never leave the mob. You can never leave the mob.
Fair enough. I can live with that.
So, have you paid attention to the tournament?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, real quick, I got to give a shout out to my Crimson Tide winning the SEC tournament. That was awesome, and so far looking good in the March Madness tournament. Big victory over Maryland the other day. Close game against Iowa in week 1. I thought that was going to be a little bit easier for Bama, but they beat up Maryland real good the other day, and now they got a big test against UCLA, and if they get past them, they'll play the winner of your Wolverines and the Seminoles.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 2-on-1. Dan and I are both from Michigan, so if they both get through, it's go blue against Roll Tide.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the better matchups we've had in the tournament so far, assuming it happens. Michigan's got to take on Florida State, and I think that's going to be a real good game. Florida State's seem to have a pretty decent year this year, and Bama's playing UCLA, and UCLA's had quite a few impressive performances this year, especially that first game that went to overtime in round 1. So then they both got their hands full prior to that. But yeah, if that does happen, that'll be a classic matchup for sure.
Absolutely.
Are you referring to John? Are you referring to the game to get in with Michigan State that went overtime?
Well, yeah, that
UCLA?
one. With UCLA, the game that went to overtime. Wasn't that a great game?
It was. I'm more of a Michigan fan, but I'm a Tom Izzo guy. I like Tom.
Okay.
Because he's a Michigan guy, but I don't know I didn't like the way that game ended for Michigan State. It was just not good. I think that could have ended better for them. And
yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you on that, but it was definitely an exciting game though, for sure.
The kid from one of the kids from, they had 2 guys that were lighting it up. Mm-hmm. UCLA did have 2 that were throwing bombs, but and they were not to be stopped. But it just wasn't a typical Michigan State defensive effort down the stretch.
Yeah, Michigan State usually is poised always make pretty decent runs in the tournament. So I was a little surprised about it myself, but it was an exciting game. To me, as an Alabama fan, it's just been thrilling watching their basketball team play well. You don't ever really hear about them doing well in anything other than football. They do well in other things. We don't really hear about it, but here's their basketball team. They clean house in the SEC tournament. And, they've looked real sharp against other teams in this tournament so far. It's becoming more and more like a legitimate chance that they might actually go deep in this tournament. So
yeah,
it's been fun,
Couple of picks that I'm looking at for the Michigan Florida State game. These 2 guys are picking Florida State, actually.
Yeah, I've heard a few people say that too, but I think it's crazy with the way Michigan's been playing right now. I'm not Florida State in that game, but
they lost a guy, a key player.
Livers.
What's his name? Jim Levens?
Livers. Isaiah Livers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a senior and, one of their, top 3 guys. But you've got to, when it comes to the tournament, that happens to people, and you got to suck it up.
Yeah, that's how it goes to me, especially the one thing I've always noticed with watching the tournament throughout the years is trying to keep that consistency going. Because, you got upwards of 2 games a weekend. Then you got that little break in there. There's practice, but then you got that break. Then you get back going again. It seems like the teams that go the deepest, do the best, ultimately win the championship can somehow keep their momentum going the whole time. If you take your foot off the gas after, your few days off after your weekend or whatever, that's when those other teams take advantage of it. And that's what, my Tide have really got to keep that focus on going into UCLA, especially if they got to play Michigan or Florida State. Both those teams I think look real sharp, especially Michigan. So it's going to be all about consistency for whoever takes this one home this year.
Michigan, which is kind of a tough thing for athletes that age. They're
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yeah, especially with injuries.
they're still, I mean, these guys haven't played that long. They're still, some of them aren't even 20 years old.
Hmm.
To have the ability to stop and start that quick. With their focus.
I mean, most college basketball players don't even stick around for too long, too. They're usually there about a year or two, and they on to the next level.
I feared that Michigan's becoming that kind of team. Juwan Howard is a magnet for recruiting. Has just been I mean, they're looking at number one classes, like, back-to-back number one classes, and they've got, they get a look from everybody now, with Juwan Howard being the head coach.
I agree, Jim. I think that's a huge, huge key for them. Not only did they get that when they hired him, but the guy has proven to be tactically a very solid coach.
I think he's helped a lot by his assistant head coach. I can't remember his I can't remember his name. He coached up in the Big East had the head coaching jobs in the Big East, and I think he's been a steadying influence. And it's Juwan's team, and Juwan's doing it, but he's been a good mentor to have there behind him. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Yeah, I can't help that one.
Buck Owens.
I know my one of my general managers I work with at Water Pig Barbecue. He's a Michigan guy, a big Michigan Wolverines fan. And even he was saying that, they become such more of a powerhouse in basketball now. He said he's almost like he's relieved when football season's over because then they can focus on basketball now after that. I was like, wow, it's really come to that now.
Because we suck at football.
Yeah.
Because Jim, I know there's if anybody from my Twitter feed has happened to take a shot at listening, I'll make a bunch of them mad because Harbaugh sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's overstayed his welcome as the coach over there. I mean, I know a couple weeks ago when I was on the show, I remember we briefly touched on that, but it's just, I think that experiment's run its course,
He's Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with him.
One thing you'll know, there's one thing you'll get with him. You're not going to win the game you need to win. The Ohio State.
Yeah, that's true.
See, this is coming from an Alabama fan, so everybody can get off me a little bit. About that, because his what makes me the maddest is his dismissiveness to he doesn't owe the fan base anything. He doesn't owe anybody anything, but just the dismissiveness of that, we're where we want to be. We're on the right track. When we're getting beat by 40 points by Ohio State, when you're 0-5, I'm calling him 0-6 against Ohio State because he COVID ducked them this year.
Oh yeah, that would have been a loss, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody was questioning if Michigan really stood a fair chance in hell of beating Ohio State this year. I mean, I thought Ohio State was really good in football this year. I was surprised Alabama did them the way they did in the national championship, but I guess you're welcome, Faja.
I was way surprised at the way they got beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of talked about that a few weeks ago, Faja, about that, this Alabama team, football wise, defensively it wasn't maybe their greatest teams, but offensively, I mean, it's about as good as Nick Saban's ever had. And once they get going it didn't really seem to matter who it was. Once they got going, it just seemed like there was no stopping them,
Right.
Yeah.
Phil Martelli is the guy I was trying to think of that I was drawing a blank on.
The assistant coach.
Yeah. Who? He was a head coach at St. Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say, he sounds like a New Yorker.
7 NCAA appearances at St. Joe. So that's some pretty good,
Yeah.
That's good company to have as an assistant,
right?
I'd say.
I think it was I think that's I think it takes a lot for a head coach, a young head coach, to put somebody like that on their staff. A lot of, what's the word I want to use? Self-confidence, that he's not worried about losing any, not getting the credit or what. He's not worried about the credit. He's worried about winning.
The end results, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I I don't know if you've ever seen those YouTube shows. They become kind of famous now. That this guy did. They're called SEC Shorts.
Oh, they're amazing. They're
Yeah,
hilarious.
The one I thought was really funny is when they looked at the Alabama's coaching staff as like a rehab program for like failed head coaches. Like for a way to get them back in the game was you do your time as an assistant coach for Alabama, and then about a year or two later you'll be back on your feet coaching for another team or something like that. Like I thought that shit was so, and it's totally true. Like just about everybody that coaches for them like ends up going on. I mean, Kirby Smart, what's his
Sarkisian.
name? Yeah, Sarkisian. Now Bill O'Brien, he's got all kinds of work to be done with over there, but he's over there now, and what's his name from Florida State and Mississippi State or Texas A&M? I mean, oh Jesus, anyway, that guy
Kevin.
The dude that was the coach for Florida State with they won the national championship, and now he's over there with A&M now.
Oh, Jimbo.
Yeah, him. Like he was a coach at Florida State or with Alabama for a while. Like
I didn't. I didn't remember that. That's funny.
yeah, and even I mean, it's just kind of funny that there's like this whole little circle of, you want to get your foot back in the door as a head coach. Just go and do your time under Saban for a year, and then you're good to go after that. The way they shot in the SEC Shorts thing was fucking hilarious.
Well, those SEC Ron Green turned me on to those SEC Shorts during the football season, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they are very good. The one where they kind of do like a ranking of like how a team should feel about themselves like at the end of like one specific season. Like I think there was one where they had like it was like a few years ago where Arkansas I think won I think they lost all their SEC games, and like when the guy was being interviewed in his Arkansas jersey, he had like a neck casket on his arm and a sling and just looked like he'd been beaten to hell and back and shit. Like, it was really good.
There's 3 number 1 seeds left. And by the way, I don't want to get out of this. Before this, I want to give all the props to Oral Roberts, who, and we can say it however they want, or however I want, because they won. And I don't get to say stuff very often, and I'm not a big fan of talking shit about Ohio State, but Oral Roberts whipped Ohio State's ass in the first round, the number 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then turn around and took care of Florida while they were actually losing in that game for a hot minute. Came back and beat them in that second round too.
Well, they got 2 guys, I think Abmas and Obanor, that can fill it up.
Those are the names I remember hearing.
They can fill it up. They put 59 on Ohio State and 54 on Florida together.
That's
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you got 2 guys like that on your team putting up those kind of numbers, that team is going to have success.
Who was I'm drawing a blank, but Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball. They used to do it for oh my God. My brain age is showing.
We're all drawing blanks today. I think it's the shitty weather we.
I want to say Loyola Marymount, I believe.
That sounds right. I know it's one of those weird schools, but
I'm drawing Loyola Chicago is distracting me. But Baylor or Houston and Gonzaga look like they have a pretty easy road to the final. I think Gonzaga is going to take care of Creighton, and then they've got a 6 or a 7 in USC or Oregon. They're going to make it to the Final Four, and Houston's got an 11, 12, and 8 seed left. Baylor's got number 3 Arkansas left.
Well, I think the way because I redid my Sweet 16 bracket today on ESPN, and the way it's got it going is if either Michigan or Alabama keep it going and send us Gonzaga's, one of us will play them in the Final Four. It'll be Gonzaga versus either Michigan or Alabama if one of us keeps going. That sucks, but
I'd like to see Arkansas make it to the Elite Eight and Oral Roberts take out Arkansas now. That'd be a pretty cool run.
Yeah, that would. I mean, it's kind of like I feel like every year, not every year, but more often than not in the March Madness tournament, there's always that one school that just kind of shows up out of nowhere and has the Cinderella run. Remember, what was it, Florida Gulf Coast some years ago? They had a big run one year. Loyola Chicago, you know, they made the Final Four that one year, and
When the
now we've got
with
Oral Roberts.
with the nun who
Yeah,
had done their
the praying
team.
nun, yeah.
Yeah,
And the press loves
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
There's some people on like some of the Sirius XM channels that can't stand her ass. They're like saying like she's like taking all the like attention away from the basketball team or something like that. I was like, who the hell cares? Like, it's a nun that likes the basketball team. Good for her, you know. I mean,
that's a good
You know.
story.
I think so too. Like, yeah, I'm not really very religious, but I mean, I think it's cool, and you know, I think it's, you know, it's a good story. I mean, it seems like she's enjoying being able to go out to the games and stuff like that. So I mean, cool, you know. I mean, good for her, good for the team.
Dan, you got a wild card out there?
Loyola, Chicago.
Yeah, that's a safe bet, I'd say.
You know,
We were just talking about them, but I don't know. They could be the wild card.
they could be.
in this whole
You know,
thing. I see Michigan coming out of their bracket. Gonzaga, obviously. I think the obvious ones are Gonzaga, Michigan, and Baylor.
Yeah, I think Baylor's looking pretty
Potentially
good. right now.
Alabama in lieu of Michigan. It's either one of those two.
Yeah,
I think Loyola can beat Houston.
so listen to this. Speaking of giving Loyola that, making that wild card pick for them, they could. I mean, they were probably the favorite. They're an 8 seed versus a 12 seed in Oregon State. And by the way, a 12 seed wins every year. And this year's that Oregon State's that 12 seed that's won the first 2 rounds. But you know, Houston's got to take on Jimmy Boeheim
Yeah.
and Syracuse.
They looked pretty good the other day.
And you know, granted, Houston's 24-3, but Boeheim's got Syracuse playing well. And if they win, you know, then Loyola's up again. You know, it's an 8 and an 11, and you know, anybody's game.
I saw the Syracuse game when I saw it of those guys was, you got a coach on the floor with Boeheim Jr. and he can shoot. They obviously respond to his leadership, but
we
they
know-
just had a ton of confidence.
Right. And that's what it's all. I mean,
Yeah, they just didn't look like they were going to be beat. Period.
that's what makes this tournament so exciting. Like right around this time, the Sweet 16 is when it's just like, you know, I mean, it's just a flip of the coin for just about anybody at this point. Like, I love the March Madness tournament's one of my favorite tournaments to watch in sports. Like, it's quick to watch because the games don't take all day to watch, and like it's just entertaining. There's always good upsets or whatever. Like, it's, you know, the fact that I actually have a dog in the fight this year is like
Right.
actually makes it even more exciting. But yeah, I love March Madness.
I got
Great.
one more thing that might change the subject a little bit, and I'll go to in a minute. But and of course, they pick the year. But since 2013, who's won more NCAA tournament games than anybody?
More NCAA tournament.
2013.
Yeah, since in the last 9 years.
It's not Duke. Would it be Kentucky?
It is not, but the color is
Kansas.
correct.
Kansas.
No, Michigan. How about that?
Really?
I'll
Yep.
be damned. I'll be damned. Really?
Yep.
Huh?
Well, this is I'm not recalling exactly how many. John Beeline had really had that team going well. You know, had really, both he and Rich Rodriguez came at the same time from West Virginia, and one of them was successful, and that was Beeline. And
Okay.
he had really built quite the program. I sure wish. I mean, I can't say that I wish he didn't go to Cleveland, but he sure wasn't a fit in the NBA, which we.
Well, I think he probably wishes he didn't go to Cleveland.
Well, yeah.
I mean, what that to me just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, me either. I don't know what.
I think the offer he was given was just like too insanely good to turn down. But like, but yeah, I mean, looking back on it, he probably regrets that. But I mean, the program is, I mean, that kind of proves what we were talking about earlier. Like Michigan's like kind of a football school now. I mean, they've always had a good hockey program over there. The football's been up and down. Unfortunately, it's kind of down right now, but basketball seems to be pretty consistent right now.
So,
Hey, Jim, do you remember the 1976 NCAA final?
I would say that was probably between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Michigan Wolverines with Phil Hubbard.
Yep, two Big Ten teams.
Undefeated Indiana.
Yeah, Michigan had 1 or 2 losses.
I do.
That might have been one of the greatest games I ever saw.
Right?
Was
And I would say
awesome.
that was probably Kent Benson.
Kent Benson, who I met later after he retired from the pros. But, yeah, Grody, right?
Steve Grody. Yep.
And Ricky Green,
Yep. Fast
Phil
as hell.
Hubbard.
Phil Hubbard.
Indiana had a bunch of studs. Didn't they have Quinn Buckner and
Probably
Yeah.
Quinn Buckner at that time with Benson. Yeah.
Excuse me.
that was my first real awareness of how good those games can be.
Right. Bobby Knight.
Yep.
Who coached Michigan at that? Oh, I know who. Johnny
Johnny
Orr.
Orr.
Johnny Orr.
Yeah, Johnny
Yep.
Orr.
Yep. John, what year were you born?
1986.
That's
Yes, I know. I'm aware. I'm the young gun of the Play Harder Radio mob. So
John can sing that Neil Young song to me and Dan. Old man, take a look at my life.
I mean, I have to get the lyrics up, but before we take off, there is one thing I want to cover really fast. But give me just a second. This
Absolutely.
is important.
I got a question for you that's important too.
Okay, 1 second. This involves a wardrobe change,
Oh,
but had to get into get this one on for this next part I wanted to cover. Had to put number 9 on.
I can't see you yet. Can you see him yet, Dan?
Yeah.
That's my delay is horrific.
Well, you're watching it on Facebook, right?
Oh yeah, they're on.
Yeah, there's always
They're
a delay on
watching
there.
it on Zoom.
they're both on Zoom. I assume you got the Drew. Yeah, I see you. Yep.
Yeah, I had to throw my Drew Brees jersey on, and I just wanted to kind of get it. I mean, I'm the token Saints fan on in the crew or whatever, and just wanted to say that I think Drew Brees deserves a big congratulations for his no dog, get out of here. Sorry. For his retirement, 20 years in the NFL. I think he left a pretty good mark on there with a large number of records, brought a Super Bowl to New Orleans, which nobody thought would happen. Outstanding citizen. It was awesome to root for that guy for 15 years.
Number 1 in passing yards, I believe.
Yep.
Number 2,
the
I think, in touchdowns.
Touchdown pass.
Number 2 to Brady in touchdowns. Yeah, he had an amazing career. You know what? My favorite trivia question, I guess you could call it a trivia question, is about Drew Brees. Is San Diego had the pick that would have taken Michael Vick, and they traded that pick, and with that pick they got Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson.
Really?
Yes.
Gosh, I read
the
Drew
hell
Brees'
did you-
book too, and I feel like I would have remembered that, but I guess I'd.
And
it's
I
been a while
talked
since I read
major
it, but-
smack about that pick forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Drew Brees
That's
was
understandable considering they had that and did nothing with it.
Miami blew it.
I'd say Drew
Yep.
Brees is also the greatest 5'9" quarterback ever to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot about what like some of these smaller quarterbacks that have said about him, like Baker Mayfield and Russell Wilson. They all seem to have a lot of big admiration for him, and well, the reactions from teammates, former teammates, people that were his enemies, people that were his, just like friends and other teams, the way they were reacting with their testimonies on social, I think that kind of speaks volumes. Everybody had something to say about it. Like,
Yeah.
he definitely left his mark on the on the franchise. And one story I always like to tell, and it's something I've told my son about, and probably will continue to tell him for the rest of his life. Outside of the day he was born, one of the more memorable moments of my life was being in New Orleans 2 days after they won the Super Bowl when they had the parade for him. And not just because I'm a Saints fan, even though it was a day I'd been dreaming about forever, but it was such an intoxicating feeling being there. Like, it was, well, in a number of ways, but there was like 1.5 million people there, and they were so damn happy. Like, everybody was having the best time dancing and singing. Everybody was buying each other drinks and hugging each other, and the parade was going on with, Drew going by, and the place was just going nuts. Like, and in a roundabout way, it was pretty much largely thanks to him. It's a memory I'll never forget. Like, it was cold. It was cold outside, but your blood was pumping so hard that it didn't matter. Like, it was so much fun. Like, when the parade was over, you didn't want to leave.
The Saints,
The
Saints resurrected that city that weekend after Katrina.
Yeah, I believe so.
After Hurricane
I
Katrina.
So. It was. And I know, I'm sure you've heard the story, about with Sean and Brittany, with Drew and Brittany, his wife, when they were with Sean and the coaching staff doing his interview with the Saints. They actually screwed up when they were done, and they were going to take him to the hotel or to the airport, and they got lost, and they accidentally went into the Ninth Ward and all the stuff that was blown to shit from Katrina. And Sean Payton was sitting there thinking, "Oh, we just blew it. This guy's not going to want to play here now after all this," or whatever. But Breeze and his wife thought the opposite. They were like, they felt like it was a calling for them to go there because of all that,
right,
or whatever. So like, that's kind of a famous story. I remember reading about it in Drew's book and Sean's book, and kind of getting two different perspectives of it. And there's that famous story too of when he did sign with the team. He got right to work immediately with that community. He was rebuilding houses. He was donating to schools, charities, all that stuff. Like, that's just kind of the guy he is, I think Stephen A. Smith said it himself best on First Take after he retired. He said he was, the true definition of class.
He definitely
it made it very easy. It made it very easy to root for him. Like, it's nice to be a fan of somebody that's just not an asshole.
These are the guys that, the ones that do all this stuff that you don't hear much about are the ones that, really grab my attention, because some of these other guys that are out there spouting off about stuff they shouldn't be spouting off about, but that's it. That's all they do. They don't contribute anything else.
I could not agree more.
And you got a guy like this that there's probably a whole lot of stuff that nobody even knows about that he's done.
Well, and you're right. In fact, one of them, I'd briefly heard about this, but I didn't know much about it and kind of forgotten about it. But in the last band I was in, we had a show in New Orleans, and because our guitar player lived out there, and he took me to this child's playground in New Orleans that Drew Brees and his wife actually financed and helped build. And it was what makes this particular park special is that it's completely handicap accessible for like disabled children. Like, there's a swing on there that you can put a wheelchair on for a person in a wheelchair to swing on. And stuff like that, you probably don't really hear much about. I remember briefly hearing something about it and almost completely forgot it until he took me to go see it because he lived nearby it. And it was really incredible. It was really incredible looking. How many cities have something like that? Because I can't think of. I know Pensacola doesn't. If we do, I don't know about it. But
right. Yeah, he walked the walk, walked the talk, for sure.
And at the end of the day, a hell of a football player. I remember during those years when the Saints went 7-9, 3 years in a row, it was very blatantly obvious that was not Drew Brees' fault. That the Saints defense was an atrocity those 3 years. But I remember on my own show back then, me and CJ used to say, Drew Brees is so good that with the way that team was in those 3 years, without Drew Brees, the Saints would have been 2-10, or the Saints would have been 2-14.
Yep.
With Drew Brees, they stood a fighting chance, And some of those games in those 7-9 years, if you go back and look at the scores, it wasn't like the Saints ever got their ass kicked in those games. Drew kept them in there, usually right up there until the end.
Absolutely. Were those Rob Ryan years?
Rob Ryan was, yes. Yeah.
Sorry,
the
Rob.
funny thing was,
Sorry, Rob.
Rob Ryan's first year with the Saints we actually had a top 5 defense that year. So we thought like this was going to be a big turning point. And then the next year we signed Jarius Byrd and, and I remember we had some good draft or what looked to be good draft picks. And then all of a sudden it was just like Jarius Byrd turned out to be the most expensive first aid kit in the history of football. And like, it just went completely downhill from there. And, then thankfully the 2017 draft happened and the Saints were able to kind of turn a corner and resurrect things. And, hopefully they'll keep it going. I think they can without Drew. A lot of their success last year, I don't really think leaned too much on Drew Brees. I think maybe his leadership had more to do with it than his actual playing did. But because they were winning games with Taysom Hill at quarterback. And as much as I like him as an athlete, I do not want him as our quarterback. I just don't think he's got it in him.
I don't really see him as a quarterback after seeing him play a few games.
Not pure.
That Broncos game that we won. That was awful. We should have killed them. The Broncos had a practice squad wide receiver playing quarterback for them. We should have by all means decimated that team, and I think we barely won it. I remember that was kind of around that time I said, Taysom Hill is awesome. I love him. We could literally put him in just about any position on the field, and he'll get the job done. But quarterback, like I said a few weeks ago on the show, obviously it's, it looks like it's going to be the Jameis show in New Orleans for at least a year. I am okay with that because, one, we really had no other choice. And two, I'm almost confident the Saints are going to draft a quarterback next year. I'd almost be willing to bet money on it. The fact that they only signed Jameis for 1 year too speaks volumes. That means they just need somebody to steer the ship until they get their next guy.
Well,
honestly, I think in the NFL, if you look at drafting quarterbacks and cornerbacks, the rest will fill itself in. Every now and then you'll get a stud defensive end that you just cannot go without. Maybe a linebacker here or there. But if you look at most of the players in that league, they could switch teams in the middle of the season, the non-key personnel to me, and you'd have similar results.
Right.
Yeah,
they're all so close. They're just so close.
And the Saints over the years during the Sean Payton era has been very good about finding diamonds later on in the draft. If you look at two of our best offensive players right now, Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, neither one of them were first-round picks. In fact, Michael Thomas was a second-round pick, and I think we got Alvin Kamara in the third round. If you look back at the early Drew Brees years with Marcus Colston, we drafted him in the 7th round out of Hofstra University, which doesn't even have a football program anymore.
I was just going to bring up that guy. What did they call him?
I named my son after Marcus Colston.
He was the last. He was the last pick of the draft. What do they call that?
I don't know what the word is for it, but that was him. Yeah.
Last pick of the draft.
I know what you're talking about.
And he was fantasy football heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome. Well, listen.
Yeah, like I said, I named my son Tate. Tate is his middle name. His first name is Colston. I named him after Marcus Colston. That's how much I like that dude. Awesome player.
That's awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up with one question for you, John. I know Dan's answer. I'm pretty sure I know Dan's answer. But you said that I'm not going to lead you into it, but but you said that the NCAA basketball tournament was one of your favorite tournaments. Mm-hmm. Playoffs, tournaments. What's your favorite?
The all-time favorite, it would be a tie between this and no matter what, whether my Lightning are in or not, I could not get enough of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I knew it.
Is always every year. It just always ends up being so exciting. Even this most recent year in a bubble, and it was weird, but my team won, which helped, but. I remember, the game in the second round with the Lightning and the Blue Jackets going to 5 overtimes. I watched that whole game on the edge of my seat because it was so entertaining. I'm a hockey fan, so I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's every year I just always end up, always having to catch as much of it as I can. And a close runner-up too would be, it was better when they had the pros in it, but the Winter Olympics when they had the pros in there for hockey, those were always really fun tournaments.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great tournament too. But I knew you would come up. I was pretty sure that you would come up with the NHL because that's my favorite
and I
you
also
know,
think it's less predictable too. You know,
right, and it's Dan's as well. There's no doubt in my mind that Dan's favorite is the
I can't believe you've
NHL
never been to a
playoffs.
Flyers game. Then
what?
I can't believe you've never been to the Pensacola games.
Oh.
If you're a fan.
Right?
Man, I'll
Right?
tell you what,
I'm
too,
weak.
though, I went. I'm sorry. I went to the home opener of the Ice Flyers this season, and we look like a real pro team now. We've got a new scoreboard finally. They're in the middle of the arena that's got TV screens on it, and like, yeah, that old one that's been there since 1996. They finally got rid of it and got like a real, video screen scoreboard in the middle of the arena, and they got video screens in the both ends of the Civic Center now. Like, we look like a real professional team, and unfortunately, the Ice Flyers are having one of the worst seasons they've ever had in franchise history this year. But because usually they're great every year, but this year apparently like they're not doing too well. But at least we've got the technology now to for all that. So like it's a long time coming for that.
John, just keep the faith. I think the area that got hit the hardest in professional hockey was the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm. No, you're definitely right on that.
With these different protocols and everything. I mean, the Eastern Hockey League, ECHL, East Coast Hockey League, I guess.
Ice Pilots used to be in, yeah.
They shut down. I mean, they didn't even have a season. So, I mean, you got a lot of guys that are displaced. They're trying to, play. They're trying to play overseas. They're trying to, get a team somewhere. And I think it's probably going to be a little choppy. The AHL is relatively intact.
Oh yeah, that's 100% linked to an NHL team. Like, I mean, almost
Right.
every time you're drafted, you're at least going to do a little bit of time with your AHL team before you go on to your NHL team. So I mean, I get that, and yeah, I mean, and I understand. The faith is still there, but it was just worth pointing out. Because usually the Ice Flyers always get kind of the cream of the crop of the players that don't get drafted, because it's an easy sell for these guys. Like, if you didn't get drafted by an NHL team, it's like, well, it's not hard to convince these guys to come over to Pensacola to a championship organization and live on the beach and play hockey. Like, it's not that hard to convince them. But this year they're having kind of a more rough year than usual, and they're playing like the same six. I think only like, I can't remember how many teams are actually in the SPHL this year. A lot of them opted out, so I think there's only like 8 teams in it this year, as opposed to like the 11 or 12 that there usually are. So it's.
I remember when I was a kid. This is way back. Okay, The family took a vacation during the winter down in Florida from Michigan, and one night in the hotel, we got a hockey game from St. Petersburg, and I was shocked and amazed that they actually had hockey in Florida. And this was well over 50 years ago, right?
Oh wow!
Damn it, you're old.
And I don't even remember the name of the team, but it was like, I couldn't imagine playing hockey for a team in Florida at that age. And now look what you got. You got the Lightning, you got the Panthers. I mean, it's become a pretty legit area.
There's a ton of hockey in Florida. I mean, like I said, just in the NHL, you've got the Panthers and the Lightning, and the Lightning are becoming one of the more, popular franchises in the whole NHL. And even before they won the championship, they were always knocking on the door. They were getting, huge attendances in games every year. But outside of them, the Pensacola's kept hockey in this town for, let's see, it came in 1996, so, well over 20 years now. And let's see, the Jacksonville Icemen. Jacksonville's had a team over there for a while. I'm not sure what league that is. I think it's the ECHL. The Florida Everblades. There's a ton of hockey in the state of Florida. And a lot of the colleges have hockey teams too, believe it or not. Florida and Florida State both have hockey programs.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
I didn't either until recently. Alabama does too. The Alabama hockey team plays in Birmingham, and when they play Auburn's hockey team, it's called the Iron Cup.
That is
dead serious. Google that after we're done.
that's
what they used to make us wear, iron cups.
Yeah.
yeah, because if that plastic cup split with a puck, you might lose a nut.
That's true. That's true.
Yep. Yeah, the right person got it too.
Well, the thing about, not to get too far off the subject here, you hit every nail on the head, John, with the Stanley Cup tournament.
Yeah.
And what makes it for me is that you cannot hide in that tournament. There's no way you can hide.
Yeah.
The team that has the will survives.
Yeah.
Because it's such a grind. I mean, you could have to play feasibly 28 games to win 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
And I mean, sometimes it takes that many games.
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly competitive, and on top of that, I mean, we were robbed of that last year. Well, because of I shouldn't say robbed, but because of COVID, we didn't get to see this part of it last year. But one of my favorite things usually about it is the way the crowds react to it. You cannot fake that, like especially when you see a home team score in a Stanley Cup playoffs game, the roar of that crowd, like over the TV. I've never been to an NHL playoffs game before. I've been to plenty of minor league playoff games, but I've heard there is nothing like being in my friend Ryan. He actually used to work for the Nashville Predators the year that they went to the Stanley Cup, which was an entertaining run. I'm not a Predators fan, but I was that year. Like, they were so much fun to watch. And he said that it was just the most incredible thing. Like, every time they would score a goal, hearing how loud that Bridgestone Arena would get every time the Nashville Predators scored. And you could see it on the TV. Like, there was something like 18,000 people outside of the stadium just watching the game on, watch parties and stuff like that. Like, that's insane. Like, that's badass.
That is.
Yeah.
I went to a Stanley Cup game in Denver, the Avalanche and the Sharks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's maybe the best sporting event I've been to.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
If you can get to a Stanley Cup final game, that means something. Anything beyond Game 3, it's an experience that everybody that is a sports fan should have.
Right.
That's something you don't lose the ticket over.
You cannot get over that. You just
No.
can't, because you think that you can't hear anything that's going on the ice because the crowds are so loud, but you actually can, and it's phenomenal.
And Dan would know championship games because he lives in the city of the Little League World Series, so he knows about big games.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
It's like going to the Derby.
That's a cool experience too. That would rank in the top 5 for me, Jim, tournament wise.
Yeah.
The Little League World Series.
Yeah, I could see it. I'm not a huge baseball guy, so I admittedly almost pay zero attention to the Little League World Series. I have respect for it, though. Like, baseball just has never really done it for me. I like going to baseball games, but I just can't seem to get into it watching on TV.
It's not big around here. Baseball's not that big around here, even with the Wahoos here, and it's just
the Ice Flyers profit more than the Wahoos do.
Yeah, I don't doubt.
That's insane.
I don't doubt it.
Well, the big thing with the Little League tournament is, these kids they're just in it because they love it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, every emotion is on their sleeve. They're playing as hard as they can play. There's nothing else attached to it other than their desire to win the championship. And, it's not pro baseball for sure, but just the atmosphere is really cool.
Yeah, like I said, like that much about it, I definitely respect for sure.
Yeah.
Like if I was ever invited to go watch it, I totally would without even thinking twice about it.
Well, you'll have to bring them up here on a road trip, Jim.
That could happen. That could happen.
I'm always down. Like, I don't like NASCAR at all, and I would totally go to a NASCAR race too, just to say I went to one. Like,
Talladega was pretty cool. I sat in the fourth turn at Talladega.
I've never met a single person that's been to a NASCAR race that said it was boring or just kind of okay. Like, everybody that goes says it's a real fun experience. And I'm not a NASCAR guy or whatever, but I can get into stuff like that. I took my son to see the monster trucks a few weeks ago over that outdoor center place on Davis Highway, and it was great. I mean, unfortunately for me, I didn't bring myself earplugs because I thought my hearing was damaged enough or whatever. did for my son and my I mean, as many metal concerts as I've been to, I couldn't hear shit for days after that. It was that loud.
Oh yeah, man. There's something else. I've been to them at the Denver Stock Show or Denver Coliseum. Took my son.
Yeah.
That was a long ass time ago, but to monster trucks. Still was Bigfoot and Gravedigger and those trucks still back then.
Yeah, these were this was part of some tour called Monster Trucks with a Z. And so part of me thought it was going to be very amateurish, but it was totally not. These were, legit monster trucks with cool looking designs on them. And they had plenty of room to move and, doing all these cool tricks. It was a good show. I did it just because my son loves monster trucks and really wanted to go to one. But I legitimately, the only thing I didn't like was because it was at a family owned outdoor event center. There was no beer, and I thought that was ridiculous. But
You'll
other
live.
than that, it was.
I don't know how you have monster trucks without beer though. That's
The exact words came out of my mouth whenever I discovered this.
somebody said
it
one
was-
time that somebody was talking about fishing and running out of beer, and he goes and running out of beer, and he goes that's like bowling without beer, and the guy goes that's like bowling without a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That part was a little disappointing, but other than that, I thought it was great. If it came back again and he wanted to go, I'd totally take him. But
Well, listen, you guys, John, I appreciate you taking the time out and calling tonight, and Dan, thanks for
course.
calling.
Yeah.
You guys were awesome tonight. Made for a great show. You'll have
The
to.
show's over. Are you sending us home?
You want to keep going?
I've got Popeye's chicken behind me, guys. So I mean, I'm ready when you are, Faja.
We got every Thursday night to talk about anything we want to talk about. We didn't even get to Gorilla Hair Girl. The newest thing on the Gorilla Hair thing, though, was a girl decided she'd wax herself with Gorilla Glue tape. So
Yeah, I'm glad we're not talking about that tonight because now I'm gonna have to research this because I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah,
but
it's
I
we'll
think
we'll
I'm
talk
good.
about. Don't show it, Todd. We'll do it another time. But hey, thanks
Sounds
for
good.
joining me. You guys were awesome, and we'll do it again. How's
Dan, it was
that?
nice talking to you, buddy.
You too, John.
All right, Faja, take it easy, man.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Thanks, guys. Good night. Have a good
Yeah.
weekend. Bye.
Bye.
All right, good stuff. Two great guests. Keeping you up past your bedtime, Todd.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right. Well, listen. For those of you that tuned in and watched, I sure appreciate it. Appreciate your support. Please like us and share us on Facebook. That would be much appreciated. And we'll see you next week.